I think in retrospect, it's obvious that the film footage and the TV coverage of Little Rock gave it a far wider impact than any of us who were the participants were aware of.
If I got anything to do with it, they won't show up. Well, I think it's a breaking point of the school integration. I just don't feel that they have a right to go to school.
We thought everything would settle down after the first few weeks, not the first year. The first day we were there, we were taken out and almost hanged by a mob. And we learned in order to even go there, we would need the 101st airpoint. How bad can school be when you're guarded by armed soldiers, right?
It was September 25th, 1957, when 9 brave African-American teens who became known worldwide as the Little Rock Nine took the steps that would forever change history.
The morning that we went to school, Daisy had called us all up to meet at her house, and 8 of us showed up. Elizabeth wasn't there. We got to school. We were at one end of the school, 14th Street, and Elizabeth was at the other end, 16th Street. Neither group knowing where the other was, because it's a big place, 2 blocks separating it. And we just made a cursory kind of attempt to enter school that morning. Elizabeth attempted to go through the guards and had the mobs behind her. It was only with the help of this woman, her husband was on the faculty of Black College there, Philander Smith, who escorted her to the bus and finally saw home, did Elizabeth really get out of any physical danger of the mob really doing physical harm to her. And none of us knew that until we got home that afternoon and we met at Daisy's house, Elizabeth there, she was in tears. Well, it has to be the most frightening thing. I mean, because she had a crowd of 100, 200 white people behind her, threatening to kill her. She had nobody. I mean, there was not a black face in sight anywhere.
It was 3 years earlier when the landmark 1954 Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka, in which the U.S. Supreme Court ruled state laws establishing separate public schools for black and white students to be unconstitutional. Selected for their excellent grades and attendance, 9 African-American students were enrolled by the NAACP to be the first to attend the previously all-white Little Rock Central High School. But Arkansas Governor Orville Faubus and his large base of segregationists challenged the integration.
The night before we were to go to school, the Labor Day, Monday night, schools traditionally start in Little Rock the Tuesday after Labor Day. Faubus came on TV and indicated that he was calling out the National Guard to prevent our entrance into Central because of what he thought were threats to our lives. He was doing it for our own protection. Even at that time, that was his line.
I have therefore, in accordance with the solemn responsibilities and the oath of my office, taken the following action. Units of the National Guard have been and are now being mobilized with the mission to maintain or restore the peace and good order of this community. Advanced units are already on duty on the grounds of Central High School.
For the next 3 weeks, the state NAACP rep, Daisy Bates, became the students' advocate, helping them with their schoolwork safely in their home, while the National Guard prevented them from entering the school. On September 20th, the Guard was removed per federal judge Ronald Davies, ruling that Faubus did not use the troops to preserve law and order. The local police were put in place to keep order and to transport the students to Central High School. On September 23, 1957, an angry mob of over 1,000 whites gathered in front of Central High School, while the African-American students were escorted inside through a side entrance.
And I was in the physics class, and a monitor came up from the principal's office and told me that I was to go down to the principal's office. When we got down there, the other 8 students were there. And at that time, we were told by the principal that we would have to be sent home for our own safety. that the police were having difficulty holding the mob back at the barricades, and that if they broke through, they could not be responsible for our safety. They didn't have enough protection. So we were whisked out of a side door and went home.
They were very clear about the fact that they would rather kill us than see us go there.
Images of violence showing Little Rock in a state of crisis made headlines worldwide. President Eisenhower took immediate action.
Extreme situation has been created in Little Rock. This challenge must be met, and with such measures as will preserve to the people as a whole their lawfully protected rights in a climate permitting their free and fair exercise. In the present case, the troops are there pursuant to law, solely for the purpose of preventing interference with the orders of the court.
On September 24th, 1957, 1,200 federal troops of the 101st Airborne Division rolled into Little Rock to restore order. On September 25th, 1957, the Little Rock Nine were escorted up the front steps of Central High School for their first full day of classes.
When we got into school, they then assigned us an individual soldier to walk us from class to class. He waited outside the classroom, and every time the bell rang and classes changed, he would walk us. We'd have our own personal guard walking us to the next class.
Even with the soldiers' protection all around them, it was still an emotional transition for some of the students.
We had the 101st Airborne, which were the elite soldiers of the Army. He said to me, "Warriors don't cry. You don't have time to cry, sweetie. You have to be aware of what's going on. You have to supervise what's going on. Select your times to cry. You can't cry. Cry when you go home. You don't cry now. Now all of your attentions must be placed on saving your own life. Nobody's going to save it as good as you are." That group of mixed students in an audience, God has kept his promise to me. For all of the hard work all of my life, I see the progress in front of me. I don't need rumors of it. I go across the country speaking to universities, some corporate areas and whatnot, and I see young people of all colors just soaring. And so for all that I did as a teenager, thank you very much. There is payback, and there is results, and there is a harvest. And that harvest is the human souls that have been released and free to soar.
That day when we got to school, with the help of the Army, 101st Airborne, it was then that I knew, as we walked up these steps with 1,000 paratroopers around us, beside us, as well as the round of paratroopers that were encircling us, that we had finally cracked the door of segregation in Little Rock. And not only had we just cracked it for Little Rock, but I think we found out later, all of us, that we had really sent a ripple effect throughout the entire South and had helped the civil rights movement move one step further towards providing equality for black folks in this country. The other thing about Little Rock I think is important is older people come up to me now and they say, "I watched that on TV," and I said to myself, if I could see 9 black kids go up these steps, go through all of that turmoil and trial and tribulation, then I could do something to change conditions for myself and other black people in my community. So I think it had a tremendous positive effect on how black people view themselves and their desire to see change occur for other blacks in this country.
Ernest Green made history on May 27, 1958, as the first African American to graduate from Little Rock Central High School, following a year of daily brutal harassment and violence. Sitting next to his parents for the ceremony was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
The first African American to graduate from Little Rock Central High, Ernie Green.
Ernest Green's distinguished career included serving as Assistant Secretary of Labor for President Jimmy Carter and working for 30 years as an investment executive for Lehman Brothers.
Melba Pattillo Beals.
Today, Dr. Beals is an inspirational speaker, chair of the Communications Department at Dominican University, and she is a best-selling author.